Have you ever really stopped to think about what's happening when you hear someone speak? I mean, it just happens, right? It feels so automatic. But underneath that effortless feeling, your brain is running this incredible high-speed program to turn simple sound waves into actual complex meaning. So, let's pull back the curtain and see how that hidden machinery really works.
You know, we pretty much all assume that we're hearing the world in the same way. If I say a word, you hear that word. It seems simple. Our ears are just little microphones recording reality, end of story, right?
Well, what if I told you that's not really true? That what you think you're hearing isn't the raw, objective sound at all. It's actually a heavily processed, edited, and sometimes even invented version of reality, constructed entirely by your brain.
So, to get our heads around this, we've got to start with a basic question. How does your brain even organize sound? Because it's not about catching every single tiny acoustic detail. It's much more about sorting sounds into useful mental categories.
And the key concept here is something linguists call a phoneme. Now, the easiest way to think about a phoneme is like a mental sorting bin. Your brain takes this huge range of physically different sounds and it just tosses them all into the same bin if they basically do the same job in your language.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got pat versus bat. That tiny difference between the P and B sound changes the entire meaning of the word. So your brain says, whoa, two different things, two different bins. But now look at the right, pat versus spat. Get this, from a pure physics standpoint, the P in pat has this little puff of air, and the P in spat is flat. They are not the same sound, but because that difference doesn't change the meaning for an English speaker, your brain just goes, close enough, and throws them both into the same P bin.
Okay, so this whole mental bins thing sounds pretty cool in theory, but how do we know it's actually happening inside our heads? Can we somehow catch the brain in the act of doing all this sorting?
And that was the million-dollar question for neuroscientists. Are these phoneme categories just a useful idea for linguists to talk about, or is this something real, something biological that we can actually measure in the brain's electrical activity?
Well, to crack this, researchers have this really clever tool called mismatch negativity, or MMN for short. It's basically a specific brainwave that your brain generates automatically whenever a pattern is broken. It's the brain's little, hey, that's different, alarm bell, and it goes off even if you aren't consciously paying attention.
And right here, this is it. This is what that signal actually looks like to scientists. That sharp negative dip in the brainwave is the smoking gun. That's the mismatch negativity signal firing, telling us the brain just noticed something unexpected.
Okay, so here's the setup for this brilliant experiment. Researchers played a stream of syllables to people hooked up to an EEG. But here's the twist. From a pure physics point of view, every single sound they played was a little bit different from the one before it. So, if you just look at the raw acoustics, this is what the brain was getting, a random scatter of slightly different sounds. If your brain was just a passive microphone, this would be a total mess. There's no physical pattern here to detect.
But here's the thing. An English-speaking brain doesn't just sit back and take in the raw sound. Oh no. It jumps in, and it imposes its own order on that chaos. It draws a sharp, invisible line right through the middle of that scatter. Everything on one side gets sorted into the duh bin, and everything on the other gets thrown into the tuh bin.
And this is the mind-blowing part. The brain showed zero surprise when the sound just moved around within the da category. It treated all those physically different sounds as the same thing. That surprise signal, the mismatch negativity, only fired when a sound jumped across that mental boundary and became a ta. The brain's surprise wasn't based on acoustics. It was based on its own made-up categories.
So, okay, these mental categories are totally real. We can see the brain using them. But now, this is where it gets really wild. It turns out these sorting bins in your head, they aren't universal. They are built from the ground up by the specific language you grew up speaking.
Just take a look at English versus Bengali. For an English speaker, that slightly nasal ah sound in a word like ban is, well, it's just what happens when an N is coming up. It's predictable, no big deal. But in Bengali, that same tiny difference makes a completely new word. So for them, it's two totally separate mental bins, one for regular vowels and one for nasal vowels.
And this isn't just some abstract grammar rule, you know? It fundamentally changes how people hear speech in real time. For example, English speakers hear that nasal quality on a vowel, and their brain immediately thinks, okay, a nasal consonant like N or M is coming next.
But a Bengali speaker's brain can't make that same prediction, because for them, a nasal vowel could be followed by all sorts of things. The takeaway here is huge. Your native language literally rewires your brain to listen for different things in the world.
All right, so we've seen that your language can basically tell your brain what to listen for and what to ignore. But can it go even further than that? Is it possible for your brain to make you hear things that, well, aren't even there?
To see just how far this goes, let's take a look at the rules of Japanese. In Japanese, a syllable just can't end in a consonant like a G. So a word that's structured like igmo is to a Japanese brain fundamentally broken. It's an illegal word in the Japanese sound system.
So that leads to this really cool question. When a Japanese-speaking brain gets hit with a sound that breaks its own internal rules, what does it do? Does it just throw up an error message? Or does it do something a lot more creative?
It's like this amazing mental autocorrect. The brain gets this illegal word, igmo, and before you're even consciously aware of it, it fixes it. It actually inserts a vowel sound that wasn't physically there just to make the word follow the rules. So the person doesn't hear igmo, they literally hear igmo.
And you know what? The brain scans prove it. When researchers played a sequence like igumo, 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 and then threw in the illegal word, igmo, the brains of Japanese speakers showed zero surprise. No MMN signal. Nothing. As far as their brains were concerned, they heard the exact same word 4 times in a row.
I mean, it all boils down to this incredible conclusion, and I think the researchers said it best themselves. Our mental grammar can influence the way we perceive speech. It's not just a filter, it's an active editor of your reality.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. The bottom line is this. What you're hearing right now isn't a perfect one-to-one recording of the outside world. It's a reconstruction. It's a reality that is being actively built second by second by a brain that has been shaped by the unique rules of the language you grew up with.
So really, hearing isn't just about passively taking things in. It's about creating the world you perceive. And that just leaves you wondering, right? If the language you speak can literally change the sounds you hear, what other parts of your reality is it quietly building without you even noticing?